good evening, this is Hound Steve wishing you a very pleasant evening, and welcome back to the channel. It's great to see you. And well, we're looking at the ABC leaked video of Amy Robach talking about having all the dope on Jeffrey Epstein 3 years ago, and the whole story was squashed by the channel execs. It's a very candid explanation, and before I go any further, now of course I'm going to link the video below so you can watch the whole thing yourself, but I'm just going to do a couple of cutouts here to give you an idea of the revelation that's involved in this video.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything. There will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
So as you can see, it's pretty damning stuff, and really I didn't want to get into this topic. It is pretty dark, but when I saw this leaked video, it immediately brought to mind the whole Jimmy Savile saga in 2012, and of course the BBC was involved in a scandal of covering up Jimmy Savile, who is basically, well, he definitely exceeds Jeffrey Epstein in his monstrosity and pedophilia. This guy was unbelievable, and this is so much the same story, of cover-up after cover-up. There's a story about a chap called Stephen Smith who ran basically a pedophile ring from the Home Office in the government, and Margaret Thatcher was cautioned about the amount of pedophilia within the British government, and yet she went ahead and put forward Jimmy Savile's name for an OBE, and the Queen knighted him. It's unbelievable. And of course, the connection between the royal family, Jimmy Savile and Jeffrey Epstein, is also exceptional. Prince Charles wanted Jimmy Savile to be the godfather of Prince Andrew, and also had visited, both of them had visited Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island, Little St. James Island, and had been photographed there with Prince Andrew. It's just, when you start tying in the Catholic Church and all of the horrors that have happened over the last century, probably even longer than that, with the damage to children, it's unbelievable. It's rife, and it all seems to be happening at the very upper echelons. Even on YouTube, there was this big scandal about, child grooming videos on YouTube Kids, and I saw a couple of the videos about those videos, and I'll tell you, they were pretty strange stuff for children that are supposed to be, in that sort of toddler age group, or let's put it this way, under 10-year-olds, and so it's basically got its fingers in just about everything. Now, I'll tell you, the other thing that was really interesting about my researches was when I typed in a search for ABC leaked video, there was no mainstream media outlets that were covering this story. None of the people who were supposedly the news and information to the people, the eyes and ears of the people, locally, nationally and internationally, were just completely asleep at the switch. Now what does that tell you? What does that tell you? And the fact that we're hearing nothing of the connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Jimmy Savile and the BBC and the similarities. And why are they not covering these stories? Why is it being left up to the alternate media, people like myself, to make the connection? Project Veritas, who of course is doing an incredible job of undercover journalism. This is what journalists used to do. They used to expose this kind of stuff, and exposed it must be. From Democracy Now!, November 2012. BBC scandal exposes cover-up of host Jimmy Savile's pedophilia fueling public broadcasters' foes. A major media scandal has toppled the head of the BBC over the network's handling of 2 reports on sex abuse, wrongly implicating a politician in one and killing a report on its own popular BBC host, the late Jimmy Savile. 1 year after his death, Savile has been accused of abusing potentially hundreds of victims while the BBC stayed silent. It actually turned out to be in the thousands, because he was not just a pedophile, he was a procurer for the elite. From the Telegraph, Jimmy Savile, a truly grim fairy tale. Even the Grimm's brothers would struggle to imagine the level of Jimmy Savile's monstrosity. The inquiry found that Jimmy Savile had told nurses in graphic detail about how he sexually interfered with bodies. You can't make this stuff up. I thought of such malignity this week when Jimmy Savile became more than a prolific predatory sex offender and turned into a gothic monstrosity that even the brothers Grimm would struggle to imagine. We were already aware of the dreadful catalogue of Savile's deeds outside hospitals, yet these new revelations revealed by the Telegraph 2 years ago brought his crimes to a new level, abuse of both the living and the dead. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, we have this from the BBC News. Thatcher lobbied for Savile's knighthood despite warnings. Senior civil servants repeatedly warned Margaret Thatcher about the risks of giving Jimmy Savile a knighthood in the 1980s, one describing the broadcaster as a strange and complex man. Manner of life. At the time, the government was leading a high-profile promotional campaign warning about the dangers of AIDS, and Sir Robert wrote back stating that Savile's acknowledged sexual promiscuity should not be encouraged. The case of Jimmy Savile is difficult. Mr. Savile is a strange and complex man. He deserves high praise for the lead he offers in giving quiet background help to the sick, but he has made no attempt to deny accounts in the press about his private life. My committee, and I still fear that his manner of life on his own confession has been such that a high award for him would be an unhelpful signal. That is a fricking understatement. So you can see, it goes right to the very top. And this from the Daily Mail. Ephraim Hardcastle. Prince Harry almost had Jimmy Savile as a godfather. Does Prince Harry, who launched the Rugby World Cup yesterday, know he almost had Jimmy Savile as a godfather? Composing the list for Harry in 1984, Prince Charles included James Wilson Vincent Savile, OBE. My sources say Charles's private secretary, Edward Adine, a courtier of the Tweed and Tradition set, was found wandering in a dazed state at St James's Palace by a friend from Lord Chamberlain's office who sat him down with a stiff drink. Subsequently, Adine sought advice from Sir Alistair Aird, the Queen Mother's comptroller. Aird assured Adine the matter would be dealt with, as it was, of course. But how revealing. Jimmy Savile, godfather of one of the royal children. Can you believe that? It's an eye-opener, isn't it? Daily Mail. Child abusers in the Home Office amid the growing furor over a cover-up of a pedophile ring at the heart of Westminster, an expose of the true extent of the scandal. Deep inside the British Library, on the shelves of a restricted section off-limits to casual visitors, lies a little-known book called The Betrayal of Youth. Published in 1986 with a print run of just a few hundred copies, the £7.99 paperback has the dry, unprovocative appearance of a piece of academic literature. Peer beneath its yellowing cover, however, and you will soon discover that its contents are anything but. The 200-page tome which I examined this week contains a series of essays offering what it calls radical perspectives on childhood sexuality, intergenerational sex, and the social oppression of children and young people. Stephen Smith, this is his photograph here, left boasted he ran the Pedophile Information Exchange, PI, from behind his desk at the Home Office, while Barry Cutler, right, worked in the same building in the security department. And there you go, you can see that this is practically institutionalized in the government and in the church. Unbelievable. And this from Global News. Canadian humanitarian worker Peter Dalgleish arrested in child sex investigation in Nepal, police say. Now, he is serving a 9-year sentence now. A 60-year-old Canadian humanitarian worker and former United Nations staff member was arrested in Nepal and is under investigation for child sex crimes, according to police. Central Investigation Bureau of Nepal Police confirmed to Global News that Peter John Dalgleish was arrested Saturday on suspicion of pedophilia. And it's interesting how they refer to him as a humanitarian worker. It sounds like a kind of low grade, but he was anything but. As we see here in Wikipedia, Peter Dalgleish is the Canadian founder of the Street Kids International charity and a convicted sex offender. Until 2015, he was the country representative for UN Habitat in Afghanistan, and he's currently in prison in Nepal for 9 years due to sexually assaulting 2 young boys. He denies the charge, from within the prison, of course. So here you go. Even in Canada, you have these kind of monsters. And who is he associated with? Do a little search for Peter Dalgleish and just add connected to politicians, and you'll be surprised at who comes up in your search. Go try that. Unbelievable. And thank God for the internet. Thank God for the ability now to be able to spread the information and talk about these issues, because I can't think of anything. You know, if there's any group of people that we need to get off this planet, by golly, these are them. Yes, absolutely, this is something that has to end. And, you know, it's because it's another interesting aspect of this, is that, you know, this has been going on for years and years and years, and yet we see now this is how the legacy media lies to us, and it is called lies of omission, and that is just simply not reporting on these kind of stories and distracting us with the things that they do print up in the media. And you know, the fact that they won't go to these places tells its own story. I think that these people should be thoroughly ashamed of themselves, and of course I doubt that they will be, because I think we're going to find out that there is a lot bigger connection between all of the people in these organizations at the higher end, the organized, you know, the people who really pull the strings. You know, we have to remember that once you get down to a certain level, you know, below that level, the people who actually do the work, who may be blissfully unaware or have just heard rumors or so on and so forth, but it really is, you know, in the senior management levels, the movers and shakers, this is where the problem lies, because there's a power imbalance and there is a wealth of money. And you know, if you want to engage in this kind of stuff, you need a wealth of money. And of course, as I say, you know, even Canada is not immune. There is a chap called Peter Dalgleish who was recently arrested and convicted in Nepal. And so Peter Dalgleish is the Canadian founder of Street Kids International, which of course deals with street kids, homeless children, troubled children, and gives him direct access to lots and lots of children. So the reason I'm doing this video is because this subject needs as much exposure as is humanly possible. If we are going to stop all of this, we have to overcome our own squeamishness about the subject matter and point it out, bring it out into the light, into the open, where we can all see who it is and what it is. And that's the real way we're going to end this. It is our collective fear of addressing the subject, and I fully understand. You know, it is not a pleasant subject at all, and I take no pleasure in making this video about this subject, but this ABC leaked video has really compelled me to do this because I think it's a message that we need to spread. So please, if you could, share this video far and wide, and comment, like and subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant evening, and we'll talk to you very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.